Alright folks, welcome back. So we ended our last video with Wallace going to Ayr again, getting in a fight again, and the streets being littered with English bodies again, and Lord Percy doing absolutely nothing about it again. So are we seeing a recurring pattern here? So we pick up from the book William Wallace, Robin Hood Revealed, with Wallace going back to Crosby to explain to his uncle what went down at Ayr for the third time. Anyway, Sir Ranald and Wallace were reconciled by this agreement. The agreement I'm referring to is that, Wallace says that he's not going to do anything else while he's staying with his uncle Ranald, and he's going to tell him when he's about to leave. Wallace had no wish to cause him anxiety and was glad set his uncle's mind at rest. Was glad to set his uncle's mind at rest. The grammar in this book drives me nuts, or rather, I should say, the lack of it. He remained in Crosby over the next 16 days. Wallace was frustrated to see that foreigners were masters in the land. It gave him immense displeasure to stay his hand while a wrong was being done. I've talked about this in other videos, but Wallace's idealism was almost to an extreme degree. Like, it pissed him off absolutely no end that Scotland was being, lorded over by England, and it really pissed him off 24 hours a day. He just could not get this out of his system, he just could not abide by it. It just irked away, it ate at his soul, and especially the fact that the English had killed his father and brother, but he's avenged that now at the Battle of Loudon Hill. He's won his first big victory, and it's going to be the first of many, but he just can't get out of his system. He just can't get that pain out of his soul. He has a big chip on his shoulder. Anyway, in the month of September, when the height of the summer had passed and cooler weather arrived, food and plenty were in abundance, and the leaves on the trees had put on their bright autumn colours. A great council was convened in Glasgow to make new laws for the governance of the country. All the sheriffs of Scotland were ordered to attend. Sir Ranald received a summons, and Wallace, as had been agreed, was obliged to accompany him. They prepared for the journey to Glasgow. A pack horse was laden with Sir Ranald's baggage and sent on ahead, led by a young manservant. So I'm guessing that Wallace is kind of serving as like a squire to Sir Ranald, or a ward even, some kind of a role like that, like he's his subordinate sort of thing. Like, in medieval times, like knights had like squires to tend to them and things like that. And Sir Ranald Crawford is a knight. Wallace is not yet. Wallace and two trusted friends set out ahead of Sir Ranald and the others. In a footnote here, the minstrel informs us later that these two men were Kerley and Grey. William Kerr, commonly called Kerr Little, was an ancestor of the Kerrs of Kersland. He accompanied Wallace when he rode to meet Sir Malcolm Campbell, Earl of the Lennox, and went with him on his northern expedition. The young servant leading the pack horse came within sight. The servant had just reached a place on the road called Hellisdean, where 5 of Percy's men, 2 on foot and 3 riders, had stopped with Percy's pack horse. The animal had been overburdened, was now exhausted, and could go no further. The leader of the group watched the servant approach and waylaid him. "Pray tell me, who owns this sumpter horse?" "It belongs to my lord, the Sheriff of Ayr," the servant answered. "Since it is his, the horse shall go with us to serve Lord Percy, or else it would be a great wrong that a Scot should fare better than an English lord. That cannot be allowed," exclaimed Percy's man. They never learn, do they? They truly do not learn. They cut the harness, letting Sir Ranald's luggage fall on the wayside. Wallace was nearby, having reined in his horse. When he came upon this scene, he challenged them in a commanding voice. You do wrong in a time of peace. Cease from this robbery. We will do as we please and make no apology, Percy's man answered boldly. What a bunch of arseholes. I mean, honestly, every single time, you know, they just behave like such obnoxious bastards. Every single fucking time. I mean, if I was Lord Percy, I'd be pretty pissed as well. Now that I think about it, like the kind of men that he has under his command, constantly provoking the Scots, constantly lording it over them, constantly pissing on them, basically, and they just compound their own problems by abusing the local population, by talking down to them, by this kind of bigotry. We English are better than everyone. They don't do themselves any favours, that's for sure. Wallace recalled the promise he had made to Sir Ranald. For this reason, he did not act. Asterisk. For once. For once, he actually managed to keep his temper. The five would later regret their deed. Oh well, so much for that. They left Percy's tired horse to wander in the fields and loaded his baggage upon Sir Ranald's. Wallace rode back to Sir Ranald and his servants. He met him at the Mearns, told him what had happened and how his servant was now left with his baggage sitting at the roadside. And were it not for my promise to stay in peace, I would never have let them go for all the gold in France. They have stolen your sumpter horse. What now? I can't really blame Wallace here for having a bit of an attitude about this. Sir Ranald tried to pacify the angry Wallace. That is no great matter. We will get another horse. Losing a man would have been a bigger tragedy than losing a horse. A man cannot be replaced. God spare me to make amends for their deeds, Wallace returned. For amends I shall make. I will be stopped neither for peace nor for my good uncle's comfort. Before these witnesses, I renounce my agreement with you to remain as your ward, for it is a cowardly thing to do to lie down to them. Sooner or later, they will take your very life. And, bear that in mind. Wallace is spot on there, actually. They do take his life. Spoiler alert. But we'll get to that. Wallace departed in great ire, accompanied by two of his friends. Sir Ranald knew what Wallace would do. I will stay at the Mearns tonight, he said, so that the English cannot accuse me of involvement should any of their men be killed. That should keep us right, and we will be seen as law-abiding. So yeah, Ranald at this point has just totally lost control over Wallace. Whatever control he had, and it wasn't really ever very much, it's just gone now. Wallace is, hang on, I need to charge my light. There we go. Bringing some illumination back to this talk. But yeah, Wallace is off the reservation now. He's had enough. He's just not going to take it. And that's kind of a good thing as well. You can see it from both angles, but Wallace just will not lie down. He just will not do it. So anyway, let's continue. So he went to bed that night. This is Ranald Crawford, lodging at the inn by the Mearns. He was distressed and mourned his situation, realising that Wallace was now beyond his control. To be fair, I think Wallace was always beyond his control. His control over Wallace was always shaky at the best of times. Wallace rode on, closing the gap between himself and Percy's men. He overtook them at Cathcart on the outskirts of Glasgow. They recognised him when he passed as the man who had lately given them a severe reprimand. The five continued on their journey, blissfully unaware of what lay in store. Wallace and the others halted and dismounted. He took out his sword and ran at the leader of the group. With a single stroke he beheaded the man. The second received a swipe on his face and fell down dead. The third fared no better. His two companions killed the others. They unpacked Percy's baggage horse, and found a valuable sum in gold, silver, and jewels. They took the weapons, armour, and the saddled mounts, which had belonged to the dead soldiers. We must ride now to some place of safety, said Wallace. Night was falling as they rode over the wooden bridge and crossed the Clyde at Glasgow. To lodge in Glasgow was too dangerous, as they would now be declared outlaws. Riding alongside the north shore of the Clyde below the Kilpatrick Hills, the men skirted past Dumbarton, the ancient capital of Britain, and rode into the lands of the Lennox. They continued riding through the Lennox until they came to an inn beside the shores of Loch Lomond. Wallace, Grey, and Curly stayed there for the next few days in the company of other loyal Scots while they planned the campaign. So yeah, Wallace is totally beyond it now. He's done making any kind of deals with the English or even thinking about it. In fact, he's plotting war. Wallace has gone to war, and nothing's going to stop him now, because the English at every turn are obnoxious bastards. You know, they're talking down to him all the time, they're provoking him, they're talking down to the other Scots, and he just is not going to sit back and fucking take it. He can't take it anymore. It doesn't matter what his uncle says. You know, he's like, Uncle, they're wrong. They're wrong. I'm not going to sit back and take this. You know, and it's the same with everyone else. And there's people who are seeing Wallace's point. They're like, this is wrong. We can't allow this to happen. You know, we're the people of the lion. We're not the people of the pussycats. We're not the kittens. We're the lions. We're not going to take this shit. You know. The council met at Glasgow on the following morning. News was brought to Percy that his men had been killed, his baggage scattered, and its treasures taken. Inquiries were made to discover who was responsible. The English had their suspicions. Well, obviously, I mean, we all know who it is. I mean, it would have been pretty fucking obvious. You know? It will be Wallace's doing, they said. They knew that the Sheriff of Ayr and his household were coming to Glasgow. Outraged, they sent a party to seek Sir Ranald, but he was still at the Inn of the Mearns. He arrived in Glasgow at 10 o'clock that morning, and was immediately brought before Percy. The sheriff was severely questioned, but they had to accept his alibi that he had spent the night at the Inn on the Mearns, while Percy's men had been slain near the town. Others vouched the truth of this. Yeah, I mean, see, the thing is, like, Wallace again is putting his family in danger. He's putting Ranald Crawford in big danger, because they knew that Wallace was supposed to be with him. You know, and I'm kind of surprised here that Lord Percy isn't putting Ranald under arrest, even, you know, even just house arrest. You know, like, why is this happening? I've given him a chance. You know, if you take it from Lord Percy's point of view, I've given you chance after chance. I've given him chance after chance. I agreed to peace with this man. He killed my soldiers. He killed my relatives. He's killed my men on the road. Like, Ranald, you need to bring this guy in to custody. And if you don't bring him in, then we're going to have to take action. We're going to have to send you to jail, and we're going to have to go after him and kill him. See, Percy's too soft for this position. He needs to be more decisive. You know? I don't believe Percy was an evil man. I believe he was indecisive and weak as a commander. He's not the kind of man who should be in charge. But, you know, taking it from their point of view. The sheriff knew nothing of this affair. He was not involved. These men were slain on the edge of Glasgow at Cathcart, while Sir Ranald was miles away at the Mearns. Yeah, but still letting him totally off with it. Not so sure. Wallace remained at the inn near Loch Lomond for the next 4 days. News reached him from Glasgow that he had been declared an outlaw, and was to be arrested on sight if seen anywhere in Scotland, which is what the English should have done ages ago. This is too little too late. They had made Sir Ranald swear an oath that he would show no friendship to Wallace for the rest of his life. And even then, that's getting away with it lightly, if you think about it. Many of Wallace's friends, on hearing the court's judgment, were distressed. Well, maybe, but I can't see how they would be surprised. You know, Robert Boyd and Cleland were in Glasgow on the day that Wallace was proclaimed an outlaw. They would rather have seen him living large as life itself, as they had seen him in the past, than been given more than £1 million in gold. Boyd wept bitterly. Our leader is gone. He has been singled out by our enemies and now stands alone. False fortune can change quickly. We have seen how God has come to William's aid in the past. Cleland consoled Boyd. Edward Little rode into Annandale and heard of the judgment. Adam Wallace heard the news while he was at his father's home in Riccarton. All his closest friends were heartbroken. They had no idea of where he was or how to reach him. Wallace left his lodging and rode to find Sir Malcolm Campbell, the clan chief who ruled the Lennox. Earl Malcolm loved Wallace. Like Wallace's father. Oh, hang on. This other Sir Malcolm was one of the few who refused to sign the Ragman Roll and recognise Edward's false claims. The Lennox was a difficult part of Scotland for Edward to subdue. Many great fighters lived there, and the English forces were weary of these clansmen. Wallace trusted Sir Malcolm and his men, all of them loyal Scots. Sir Malcolm gave Wallace a warm welcome and even offered to make him the leader of his warriors. Wallace declined this generous offer. That is too much an honour for me, and besides, I cannot stay. I have my mind set upon a plan. I must travel further north. Their laws strangle our whole country. I will avenge Scotland's wrong, or die in the effort. Absolutely, and you can see how Wallace is respected amongst the Highlanders and the Lennoxmen for this victory that he's won at Loudon Hill. Word of that would have spread for, all the things that went down in the air, all 3 times that he went there, his miraculous return from death. So Wallace is a natural leader for the Highlanders, even though Wallace himself is not a Highlander. That's misleading when you watch Braveheart and they're all wearing kilts and like it's filmed up in Inverness and all this sort of thing, and they look like they still live in a village straight out of Skara Brae in the Orkney Islands. But like I said before, probably a few times by now, Scotland even was much more sophisticated and wealthy than what you see in movies like Braveheart. Outlaw King was much closer to the truth. But, the Lennoxmen, the whole idea that the Lennox is a place like the English just refuse to go there, like unless it's in massive numbers, kind of thing. That's quite, you can see why Wallace is choosing to go there of all places, because that's the one place he can go where he would be welcome and not have to fear for his life, and, where he would be respected and looked after. It's a very, very, very smart choice. So we'll leave it there for this clip, this video. Leave your thoughts and comments below.